All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the world-famous Tipitinas. Thank you much to Tipitinas for allowing us to use the space, and thank you to Nugs.net for using their equipment. I'm very excited. We have a very good friend of mine, someone who I just really like hanging out with and being around. Let me go ahead and read off some of his credits here. You might know him from Soul Brass Band, Smoker's World, a former roughly 20-year veteran of the Barbecue Swingers. If you've been tapped into the New Orleans music scene for a little while, you might remember Crunk or All That. MFG, the Low End Theory Players, and many more. Also known as a WWOZ DJ, a former Tipitinas employee alumnus, as well as an actor. Please help me welcome Mr. Smoker himself, Derrick Freeman.
Thank you very much.
I know I missed a bunch of bands when I was going through all that. How many other bands?
I can't remember them all either. It doesn't matter. It's all
good.
But
the Crunk and the All That, I think, is one of those. That's a deep cut
in particular this room.
Yeah, for sure.
And this spot actually. A lot of gigs I did with Kermit because of the way the setup was. I set up like pretty much right here.
Yeah. This is all your spot, man. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know.
You've been playing around here long enough.
I'm privy to all the parts of the stage.
Yeah, you've seen every nook and cranny in front of a full room for sure.
Yeah.
When did you get the Smoker alias? When did you bring that on for yourself?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. My good friend King Harvey of internet fame, of meme fame, of also Iris May Tango fame, and Sir Funk-A-Lot. Two other bands I played with here.
I'm a big Sir Funk-A-Lot fan, actually. It's funny you bring that up. A lot of people don't remember that one. But.
King gave me that name.
Okay.
We had a phase where we were me, him, and my good friend Wallace Lester. You might know Wallace too. Drummer, has played with a lot of blues bands. We hung out a bunch in these days, and Chatty, who was also in Iris May Tango. We spent a lot of time. We would work out in King's driveway and just and barbecue and grill stuff to the point, and we sold products, and to the point where people would come and see us and bring us, people would bring burgers or chicken or whatever for us to grill and shoot. And at some point, one day somebody brought us like a huge like a rack of lamb or beef or something. Man, that thing's too big for the grill. We gotta get a smoker. I'm like, I know. And King had one of those garages where it's like, don't you got a bass in there? Like, of course he does. Don't you ever, like, it was like one of those garages. So, like, I know you got a smoker back there somewhere. Some back there behind, like, the ping pong table and shit looking.
It's the junkyard of stuff.
Right. And it was like, he had one of these little, like, the kind of like freestanding, like, single smoker about this tall.
Yeah.
And it was literally called the Mr. Smoker. It was like a defunct brand. And I was like, oh, they got a Mr. Smoker back here. And I turned around, and him and Wallace were both standing there like, Mr. Smoker. They're like, that's you, bro, that's you.
So it did come from smoking food, not too much weed.
It was. Okay. It's always had double meanings, but it's literally. And I remember when I surpassed that defunct grill on Google. It was a proud moment.
Yeah.
Well, like we Google Mr. Smoker, I come up now. But
you come up instead.
It took a while. It took a while.
Got that SEO going in your way.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Something else that's on your credits that I think is always funny, just when I see something like this for someone who is a seasoned professional. Congratulations on winning the Best Emerging Artist at the 2017 Offbeat Awards after emerging roughly 20 plus years earlier.
In 2017, I had been here. How many? 25 years. Yes.
Yeah, I guess it was for Soul Brass Band, but
Soul Brass Band was a band that did start in 2016, so it was apropos. But and a lot of members of that band are wily veterans and people that have played here for a couple of decades. So, but yeah, I mean,
It's just a funny thing. I love coming across stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you are from Houston originally.
I am.
Also a person of Houston.
I'm from the city of Houston. You're from the suburbs.
That's right. I'm from about 30, 40 minutes north of Houston.
It's all good.
No one outside of Houston cares, though.
I know. It's funny. And, it's funny because over the years, like, especially a lot of cats I grew up with and cats that were a few years older than me and a few years younger than me that I was familiar with from, like, camps in Houston, like, it seems like we somehow taken over the whole music industry.
Yeah.
A bunch of dudes I went to high school with.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No. So, I mean, I much identify with New Orleans. I mean, I moved here right after I turned 18 years old. So
yeah, you've been here more than half your life.
Way more than half. Yeah. So it's but I still have I had the Houston connection just based on all the killer musicians that I was blessed to grow up with that still are, in the industry now.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Who were you listening to growing up? I mean, from Houston or not, what was the kind of music that you were into when you were a little kid?
I was a very strange kid. I was a
I don't doubt that for a second.
Right.
Come on.
I was a musical theater. Like I really wanted to be a ventriloquist.
Really?
So I listened to a lot of comedy.
All right.
Which was strange as a kid because their parents. There's only like 10% of comedy you can listen to before you get to a certain age.
Yeah, it's something
You know, and a lot of musical theater. And just when I got to high school is when I got more into jazz and.
Well,
But when I was in high school, because I was thrust kind of, I was a classical musician, classical percussion. When I started playing in the jazz, the combo in high school, ironically, two of the people I listened to the most, I'm not even sure if I knew they were from New Orleans, but I listened to a lot of Shannon Powell because I loved this trio record that Harry Connick had out called Lofty's Road Souffle. And then I was, like, we were all Wynton Marsalis worshipers at that time.
Yeah.
So I was obviously into Hurlin big time. Hurlin Riley. Those who don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't know who Shannon Powell is, I guess.
Right, whatever, yeah. So,
yeah.
So I did listen. I mean, and of course, Art Blakey's always been one of my heroes. And Tony Williams and all, Philly Joe Jones and Jimmy Cobb, all the drummers, you know, when you go to jazz music school, jazz school, you learn about all the classic cats from Philadelphia and New York. And a lot of Houston cats. Grady Tate was a guy I learned from.
I don't know.
Who's a Texas guy who was a great drummer and singer. And he played with like Ray Charles and the likes of those type people.
Well, were there any other musicians in your family at all?
No, that's a loaded question. Not really.
It's a yes or no, but you can go ahead and talk.
But because of the ancestries and the 23andMe's, I've found out other things that I didn't know before.
I mean, we can talk about that, man. I mean,
no. The short answer is not really.
All right, no, not in your immediate family.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, have you discovered through the genetic stuff?
Yes, yes, I have.
Anyone of note, or just?
Yes, stories? But also we don't. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to talk about that now either.
All right,
but it's a whole different interview. But yes,
that's okay. I mean, we'll save that for volume
as far
two.
As far as my environment and my upbringing, no.
Okay.
But whatever I had inside me, yes, apparently. So there you go.
Well, I mean, there you go. I remember hearing, I think it might have been with another interview sometime in the past year or so, that you had said how, as a young kid, you had tested really high, and they tested you as a gifted student, and gave you different avenues, like, hey, you don't have to just sit in regular classes. Do you want to go into this, or this? And you chose music.
Well, it's the early 80s, too, you know, so I'm ill-informed as an 8-year-old as to what my future potential is, you know. So they're like, you know, do you want to study computers? I'm like, huh? I mean, if I'd have known... Of course, I'd have been like,
it would have been the smart move.
Hell yes.
Yeah, it would have been the smart move.
And they were like math and science, and I was like, eh. And then they asked me about music and theater, and they gave me some like simple music aptitude test that I like aced.
Nice.
So that's how,
Well, I guess this ultimately led to you going to the HSPVA, which is the Fancy Pants Artsy High School of Houston, the Houston School of the Performing Visual Arts.
It wasn't as fancy when I was going to it. It was more, but it was... specifically, it's called the High School Performing and Visual Arts from Houston, and I think they're in their 3rd or 4th location now.
I was going to ask you where it was.
I don't even know where it is now. To be honest,
now it's downtown, like right around the corner from the baseball stadium.
I would like to say a lot of my friends and contemporaries have made it into the Hall of Fame of that place, and I'm like,
really?
I'm like, were they on HBO? I don't know. Anyway, I don't. It's fine. No, I'm very proud of that situation. It changed my life, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how Houston was in the parts you didn't grow up in, but you were familiar.
I'm quite familiar with how Houston is, kind of top to bottom.
Right. So we, you know, it granted me other opportunities, and it's how I met Ellis Marsalis, and you know, which is how I got here.
Well, who else? Was there anyone else of note? You mentioned people that you went to high school with that went on to careers. Who else?
Yeah. Well, drummers wise, there was Mark Simmons, a great drummer who played with Al Jarreau and many others, and Grammy Award-winning drummer. Then there's Chris Dave. Who's played with everybody, and Eric Harlan, who's also played with everybody. Like these, I was literally in high school with those guys. And Jason Moran was a piano player I was in jazz combo with. Yeah. But there's a lot of guys slightly older than me too, that were there. Mike Dillon being one of them, because I met him when he was in Weatherford College, which was like this killing junior college. Yeah. In East Texas, that all these like badass musicians went to.
Rutherford? I don't think I heard.
Weatherford College. I think Mike might have went to North Texas too. I don't know. You can ask him.
I mean, I've heard of UNT. Like North Texas is a big.
And we all. I went. You know, I went through the full gambit of all. You know, like maybe I'll go to North Texas, or maybe I'll go to Berkeley, or we all wanted to. I really wanted to go to Juilliard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that was kind of like top of the mountain for you?
Yeah, but and Juilliard, I think they take like 2 people per state.
I mean, it's
state of Texas is like 40,000 people trying to get,
At least, yeah. At least.
Ironically, my friend Sylvia Danberg, who's now one of the principal violinists in the Met, she who I also went to high school with, she got into Juilliard.
All right.
I was upset about that, but I mean, I don't know. But it was all these schools I got into, and I was unfamiliar with all these places, Michigan, Ohio, and Arizona, and wherever it was.
They were all throwing deals at you, like, hey, we can give you a scholarship for this or that, whatever.
Yeah, because there was all these contests that we did, and like for like just music contests for notoriety, and I would like get an honorable mention here or 3rd place here or whatever. So it was like it was like something to do with the budgets of the colleges, like because the year before I graduated high school, a lot of these music programs, like accredited music programs in America, they got endowments to add jazz to their
started getting added to classical programs, basically.
Right. So a lot of colleges that already had accredited, very famous music colleges were adding jazz. So they're just like plucking kids from everywhere trying to, which UNO was also doing.
For sure, yeah.
But
it was also a new school, probably. Also,
UNO, there was a class. I think I was either the 2nd or 3rd class. I think I was the 2nd class at UNO.
Yeah.
So it had just, and Ellis, rest in peace, or E as we called him affectionately, Mr. Ellis Marcellus. He came to my high school recruit mostly to try to get Jason Moran to come here, basically, and I was just collateral of like, let's
happy to be
this
there
guy
on stage
fine,
too.
yeah.
Well, you played. I mean, you're obviously known mostly as a drummer, I would say, but you played piano and wanted to study classical composition. Is that right?
Yeah, I was more of a class. I started off piano, but I played classical percussion. Okay. To be specific, in the symphony orchestra and the concert band, and I play vibes, and I play vibes in the jazz band, and also baritone sax.
I didn't know you played sax.
Well, my senior year of high school, I got thrust into the jazz combo because somebody didn't meet the requirements. It was still Texas. There was some race going on in the high school.
Even at Aegis PVA?
Yeah. Like a lot of us, the black students, it was different obstacles we had to do to make sure we didn't get kicked out or whatever. It was happening. All right. Which you don't kind of realize till later, but whatever. The point is, something happened to one of the guys that was better than me, drum wise anyway. Jack, because I played drums in the church, but never in school, until like my senior year of high school. So that's all I was so overwhelmed by the jazz part too, because I wasn't really that into that yet. I wanted to be a classical musician. Yeah. So all these jazz scholarships, I was like, I don't know if I want to play jazz. Right. Yeah. I had my musical theater background. Like I was still more of that kind of kid than I was a jazz.
Well, while you were in high school, you said you were studying, started out as piano and were studying mostly classical percussion. Yeah. What kind of career did you see for yourself back then? Like, you mentioned the musical theater and
whatever
stuff.
I was going to do would involve New York. Okay. In my mind, it was always, whether it was going to be theater or jazz or play, it was always...
Well, in the 80s, I guess, like theater and jazz, New York was basically the only place where you could make a career doing anything.
And Fame was like a huge, Fame was like a real, I looked at Fame like it was a documentary. You know what I'm saying? Because I went to that type of school and stuff.
You
went
to Aegis PVA.
Right, so it was like, I thought that was going to be my life. So I was actually extremely disappointed to come to New Orleans. I was only going to use it as a stomping song. Like, I'm going to be here, because I knew I was a good student. Believe it or not, I was on the dean's list my first 2 or 3 semesters at UNO.
I believe it.
Before I discovered the Tremaine neighborhood, So my plan was just try to come here for a year or two and then transfer to Berkeley or because all my friends from Texas were going to DC and New York and Boston.
No one was coming to New Orleans.
No.
Wow.
Not yet.
Well, you mentioned Ellis. He kind of poached you, as it were, from Houston.
Recruit, it was the word I would use. But
okay, that's a better word. Poach is, that's a little meaner sounding, I guess. But he convinced you. Was there something that he did to convince you at all? Was it just
It was,
like, hey, I know
it
you
was,
just started...
it was him. It was Winton too, because Winton was just like, you ignorant, you know. To be frank, you know how Winton talks, especially back then. He's like, you ignorant mother. You need to go study with my daddy. Like, no, I was actually I was really trying to go to Howard, but Howard was like, I applied late, so I was like getting information wet. Long story short, my high school jazz combo, after I graduated high school, like in a few months, I was still in Houston before I came here. I was still playing gigs. Because we were popular, we played corporate gigs all around Houston.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing Houston's got, I mean, it's got a slew of, people don't think of it as a music town at all.
No, it's totally
But it's such a huge city that there's tons of work for musicians.
Right, so one of our gigs, and this maybe 2 weeks after I graduated high school, we opened up for Ellis Marsalis at the Hyatt Regency in Houston, where it spins. Right?
Yeah.
So Ellis is extremely familiar with me, obviously. I think I knew I wasn't going to Juilliard. I was like, Oberlin, like I don't know where Ohio is. That's not happening. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to Pittsburgh. I'm not going to. I tried to convince my mom because I got in University of Hawaii. And she's like, what?
Just because you
she's
wanted
like,
to be cool and live in Hawaii.
She's like,
right?
well, yeah. She's like, well, one, like, how you gonna get there? And if you do get there, like, how the hell you gonna get home? You know, like, so that wasn't happening. So basically, Ellis was like grilling me on what I was doing, and I was like, didn't really have any answers. And he was like, yeah, whatever, you need to come to UNO and audition, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna give you a scholarship. But unbeknownst to me, Dr. Charles Blanc, who I think just died a couple of years ago, who was the head of the whole music department at UNO, was college roommates at University of North Texas with my high school band director.
Really?
So unbeknownst to me, I already had a full scholarship just based on that.
Just waiting on you. Waiting for you. Yeah.
So I'm like,
that's phenomenal.
And my mom got wind of that.
All right. And this is the closest school to
She was
Houston.
like, she was like, full scholarship. And she was like, oh, by the way, I called those people and they said you can move in the dorm next week. And I'm like, what do you, it's only like June. Like, she's like, no. Like I said, I called those people.
Time for you to get out of the house.
Yeah, and it was Houston in 1992 for somebody like me who was like on the fence of like could have been a knucklehead or not. Which is ironic to think of now that like I came to New Orleans because it was the safer place.
Yeah, that not a whole lot of people say that. For
Just the situation, you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Well, so you got a bus ticket and rode over to Houston, right?
Yeah, like literally Greyhound. And my uncle brought my in a conversion van like a few days later.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, did you like it when you first got here? Was it what you thought it would be? Was it
no,
more
man,
or less?
I was I was into all kind of things that, well, UNO wasn't what it is now either. It wasn't very transient at all. It was a very local college, and like they just like the engineering school and the jazz school, and I think maybe the HRT, like all these schools had come in at once. So it was like the first time they had this influx of people not from New Orleans at UNO. It wasn't like a traditional. It wasn't like Tulane, where there's
Yeah, it's not depending on a lot of people.
So it was like, so all
commuter college.
All my early friends were like local New Orleans people. That like some of them still stay with their parents. It was like a weird, and the hip hop was hit here way late. We had already been crushing hip hop in Houston. Like it's like bounce was heavy here then, and like the hip hop hadn't started yet. So that was weird for me. And then like.
I don't even know if there was
homophobia.
In
homophobia was very high.
Okay.
Like from black people my age, I'm just being real frank.
Yeah.
Like I came from art schools, so that was like, I didn't know it was. I felt strange at first. I'm like, I need to go to New York. These people are backwards, the country. This ain't gonna work for me. Blah blah blah. But then I started like meeting Creole girls and like eating the food and started getting gigs like very early on.
What kind of gigs were you getting early on?
I was playing with Walter Payton, Nicholas Payton's father.
Nice.
And I was playing with Jeremy Davenport, my friend Andre Carter. Even like early stuff with Kermit, like going to sit in or subbing for Shannon.
Well, how did it happen? Was it just someone saying, "Hey, you should go check out such and such bar, so and so is playing"? Pop in and just meet people, or was it someone through the school? Did Ellis like, hey, you know what, you play drums? I know someone who needs a drummer.
Ellis. At first, the first couple of semesters, I kind of stuck close to campus because I wasn't really I hadn't seen yet, so I wasn't really trying to, you know, where UNO is. Like, I had seen a lot of New Orleans East, a lot of Gentilly.
Yeah.
So I wasn't familiar with Uptown and all this other thing at first.
You only saw one tiny little aspect of the city.
William Terry, who's the soap man, Bayou Soap Man, who plays bass with Shamar Allen. William used to play sax and tuba and now bass. He was the guy that told me, he's a real deep voice like Charlie Tooney. He's like, you need to go to Joe's, man. You can check out Joe's on a Sunday. Talking about Joe's Cozy Corner in Tremaine. So I went there one day, and that's when it happened.
That's where
because I literally met like Kermit, James Andrews, Uncle Lionel, Benny Jones, Corey Henry, like Little Trombone Shorty, like all of them at the same time, you know.
So yeah, flood walls are down, and you're just getting bombarded with everything by then.
Yeah, and then and I was like, pretty much stalking Shannon Powell at that point. I'm like, you know,
he's a legend. He's a legend.
And Shannon was like notorious for triple booking himself.
Okay.
So being his like number one stalker had advantages. He'd be like, just go play that gig for me. And I wouldn't have no idea.
Put on this hat. Tell him you're Shannon.
Right. I have no idea what I'm doing.
In the corner don't know the difference, right? Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Well, you got to study with Ellis Marsalis, obviously, and Harold Batiste. Is that right?
Yeah.
Was he teaching over there at the time?
Harold was like my actual. I mean, both of them were my mentors actually, but Harold was my actual like assigned mentor from like the Black Student Union. Was Harold Batiste, which is amazing. So I spent a lot of time in their offices talking to Harold and talking to Ellis, and talking to them was, you know, because you'd be talking to Ellis and it's just like, oh, Ed Bradley's here, like, damn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's here. Like, these are their friends. It's not like.
They've been at the top of their game for decades. They are the musical history in that room.
Right, so I would get all kind of like, you know, I mean, it was always a thing where it's like, he just knew he had to keep his eye on me, you know. So I would spend a lot of time just listening to their stories and, which a lot of I didn't figure out till decades later, really. Yeah. What they were telling me at the time.
Kids, I say kids, but young adults, whatever.
Yeah, we don't know where. Yeah, exactly.
You already know
especially
too much.
Back then, it was no, like I was already like, I think the internet came my last semester at UNO. Well, should have been my last semester. I was there a few years after that because I went back. I went back and finished like eventually.
So you didn't finish in 4 years. You came back.
No, it was like it was a while. But what should have been my senior year in college was when we first got the internet.
Okay.
So it's a whole different, you know. Like you had to listen to old people to get the information.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the way that
wasn't
worked.
out there otherwise. You had to search for it in a library. How long would that take? You know.
Right.
It's funny you mentioned the things that you didn't learn till later, or when you're a kid you think you know everything. I want to bring this up a little earlier than I was going to, but we did an event here last year for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society where you stepped up and allowed yourself to be roasted by all of your favorite people in town, which is one of the most courageous things to do. Like, I remember as soon as I heard you were doing it, I said, oh no. Like, is he really doing that? He knows what a roast is, right? And then when I saw everyone that was going to be on stage with you, I said, oh no, he's dead in the water. How's he ever going to make it out of this alive?
It still wasn't funny. I mean, it was
funny, and it was out of love. Everyone loved you. That was
great.
There.
You know,
it was beautiful. You raised money. You helped the world. Like, it was a beautiful event. But the one story that sticks out is Johnny Vodakovich's story.
Johnny, like I promise you, I just watched that video like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. You go ahead and tell the story then.
God, it's so good.
Tell the story.
Okay, so like he just, like as many New Orleans people, is unpredictable, and the dais of that particular event.
Oh, it was like shoulder to shoulder people.
Like, anything could have happened, right?
Exactly.
So Johnny gets up and he's just like, he goes to the whole history of like how he used to give me lessons and I didn't show up, and like how I started growing dreads and I started telling him I was an actor, and now it was hilarious. Yes. It was like, but then like, and I think about Johnny, I'm like, it makes sense if I'm like, he used to play in the Playboy Club, like knows about this type of entertainment.
Yes.
And he really showed us all, because we there was like bets on like, will Johnny crash and fail? Will he like, you know what I'm saying? Because he's just aloof in that way, which is why we love him, genius. But that was and Arson Delay was particularly funny too.
Oh yeah.
It's weird too, because it's like, because I'm young, I'm only 40, sit down like who get roasted in their 40s. But
yeah, no, your career ain't over.
Right, but like
you still have decades ahead of you.
And it's funny because I've been talking to Jay Mazza too about writing a book.
Yeah,
'cause he's like all these stories and that way I also feel like I'm like, really, like now. I'm like,
why not?
Should I wait 20 years?
Should you though? I don't think you should.
But going back to Harold Baptiste, that was one thing Harold Baptiste always said that stuck with me before I even knew what it meant, was like to make sure that I document everything.
Yeah.
But like you'll hear like certain interviews of people and they'll be like, oh, it's the first time I got to play a Nice Jazz Festival. It was a lifelong dream. I'm like, I played that festival like 20 years ago. I'm like,
exactly.
It's not a big deal. I'm like, but it is, you know what I mean? But like,
to you, but that's just it. Like,
it's one of those things where like, garnering perspective and documenting everything.
Yeah. Let me cut you off, and not for long.
No,
but
cool.
Just to say, like, there's plenty of material there. Obviously, you've done more in your career in the past. In the first 20 years of your professional career,
right.
you will have you've accomplished more than most professional entertainers do in their whole lifetime. So
yeah,
as far as the amount of people, the people that you've gotten to perform with live and in studio, and the amount of people
just on this stage.
Just on this stage.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
on one stage
without
in
a doubt.
this historic town full of stages where it's happened everywhere else too, in front of conceivably millions of people in the past 20, 25 years, all added together. I don't doubt that for a second. And been to dozens of countries and dozens of festivals, and the mere fact that you have a memory of sitting in a room with Ellis Marsalis, Harold Batiste, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is unfathomable. So
yeah, I'm just saying.
Yes, there's room for a book.
This is the type of stuff that I'm like, Ed Bradley's here? Like who?
Yeah.
Like that's your homie?
Yeah. Yeah. This is all material, man. Like,
right? Like
it's out there. It's out there.
It was unique too, I guess, to have black men as mentors during that time, especially on a collegiate level. Or I never thought about it that way because it wasn't like I was going to HBCU, which a lot of my friends were.
Yeah.
So they were getting that experience. Just because, like, most of their professors are black and their chancellor is black. I'm like, UNO definitely wasn't that.
No.
Right,
no.
You know what I'm saying? But even with that, I still get Ellis and Harold is, like, incredible. If at any, you know what I'm saying, any young black person or white person, I'm just saying, but as a young black man, to have those people mentor me in a intellectual setting.
Yeah.
It's like a total blessing, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting, and it's funny you bring up the idea of a book because I think that would be fun too. It's like you said, cataloging everything, and with our phones, if you post to Facebook regularly or whatever, or Instagram, that's kind of cataloging things. You can go back a few years and see what you did, but for all those years prior, since you already had a full career before you were living it on the internet as well.
Right, true. Man, I'm also starting to forget a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, like it was.
I mean,
it's
mostly because of Katrina trauma. It's just like there's just a part of just like years I can't remember before that, which is we all know about that. But that's
it's like a different life that you lived.
Right.
All right, let's move along a little bit. While you're in college, that's when you met up with Kermit, like you said. Is that when you became a regular part of his band, or was it after?
No, it was a while before.
School?
It was actually a while before I actually became a regular part. I played a lot of gigs with Kermit before I was actually in his band.
Okay.
Like even like touring Europe with him before I was actually even in his band.
No kidding. All right. I
was a sub.
A sub that goes on the road to Europe. Yeah.
I'm the one he could afford because I'm like a kid who doesn't know. I love him. It's not an indictment on him. I live that life right now, so I know how that goes. I started hanging out in Treme and doing little second lines with Benny Jones and the Treme Brass Band, and I would go to Joe's and I would go to Trombone Shorties and I would go to Candlelight, for the jam sessions. But also like all the straight jam sessions, not in the hood. Like we go to Caldy's Coffee House and Cafe Brazil. I started doing the Monday jam session at Cafe Brazil.
Yeah.
Me and my boy Paul Longstreth. I inherited it from Andre Carter, who I think got it from Jeremy Davenport, who got it from Nicholas Payton.
Really?
It was just like one of those.
Hell of a lineage right there.
Yeah, but it was like one of those, just like somebody at UNO or who in that peer group had this jam session on Mondays. Cats would just come through.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'd be like Joshua Redman or like, you know what I mean? I think Shannon Powell and James Andrews got wind of us starting to make a little money, so they would show up at our freaking jam sessions and take over and take all the tips.
These kids don't know what's up.
Yeah. Teaching us the game, man, you know. And then
Come chop your head off and right? Yeah.
But you know, by watching them, we start to learn like, oh, okay, there's certain I can do to like get more tips, right? So, you know, the cat's like, you should sing. I'm like, I can't sing, bro. I'm like, no, it's fine, go sing. So like, I remember I was singing "What a Wonderful World" because some lady was like, "I'll tip you all $20 if you sing "What a Wonderful World." So it's like,
Kermit played it, right?
No, but Kermit, this is what I'm trying to tell you. So I'm singing it in Cabaret Brazil, and Kermit walks in as I'm singing "Wonderful World." I'm like, shh. He's at the bar like, dude, he's at the bar dying, like. Yeah. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, man. I had, you know.
She asked, I got we're getting paid. What's the
He's like,
deal?
hey, man, I got a gig for you at the House of Blues. I'm like, what's the House of Blues? Like, literally, like the grand opening of the House of Blues. It's like one of the first gigs I played with Kermit, and then I played with him at Trombone Shorties, which was nothing exists there now, but it was. James Andrews had a club there for a while, and then Kermit had a club there too, but. It was kind of catty corner from where the Candlelight is, and then down the block from where Joe's is, so in the middle of Treme.
All right.
So that's the first gig I played in Treme. Then I played Little People's a lot too, and also Joe's and Candlelight. But Trombone Shorty is the first place I played at in Treme.
All right. Were you ever doing any second lines or anything like that?
Yeah, with Treme Brass Band.
All right, yeah.
And the Little Rascals I never played with. But they were my age.
Yeah.
And Charles D. Taylor, who passed years ago, I think in '97. He was a member of that band. Okay. But Charles was like an excellent modern jazz player too, like newfound like Cannonball Adderley, like he's crushing on the alto sax.
All right.
He was in the Little Rascals, and we were neighbors in the third. And when I stayed in Delville Marsalis' house in Uptown, me and Charles were neighbors. And I used to drive him to Little Rascals rehearsal, they rehearsed like every day back then. So I would drive them rehearsal and hang out, eat hot sausage sandwiches, smoke weed, and watch them rehearse. But I was never in that band. But I marched with Treme a little bit. I would do second lines, black men in labor. Like Benny Jones would hire me for stuff, but
it was never a regular gig for you.
It was never a regular gig for me. It was always one of those things where I was like, it's not my lane. I got a lot of homies that do that.
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll get back to Kermit, House of Blues, everything else.
Right.
Sorry, we're taking a huge tangent. As, you know, classical jazz musician or whatever you were studying, like going to school to study, does it ever look down on it all? Is it like, hey, man, not like it's a lower form of music. We're being educated to play something different from that. Was it ever like that? No, it was
never looked down on because New Orleans cats respect musicianship.
Yeah, that's
and you have to have a certain level of musicianship to understand that language. If you're not born and raised here, and like I said, like I have 2 generations above me that was raised here, and countless cousins and like that I found out over the years. But whatever. So I'm more linked to the city than I thought I was during this age.
Yeah.
But I just felt it inside, and you know, musicians that weren't college cats, totally embraced me. Okay, because they saw it. I had a thing. That's why Shannon Powell embraced me. I had a connection to that.
Well, you're a born entertainer, man. That's part
right,
of it.
But I'm just saying, just the language of New Orleans music, was ingrained in me. You know, there are a lot of those guys are my contemporaries. And like I said, me and Corey Henry, we were touring like with Kermit. We were still teenagers. I was like 19, you know, so it was like, I was already, and like a lot of the generation now are like sons and nephews and grandsons of people I played with. So a lot of those kids don't even know I'm not from here. They think I'm from Treme.
Like, well, I mean, I didn't know that you were from here until like 7 or 8 years ago.
Right. And I'm never like, hey, I'm never like.
You don't have to wear a badge or anything.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but I mean, I'm never
Native
like
Texan. Sorry,
I never tell people I'm born and raised in New Orleans. But the funniest thing is like, really, it started coming. Well, social media too is when people were like, oh, you're not, you know. But also like people being like, Freeman, I went to Kennedy with him. I went to St. Aug with him. You know, they're like, I went to Clark with him. Like
plain old lying.
Yeah, I'm like. Not really lying. It was just that I've been, I
You
moved
were
here when I
around
was a
so
teenager.
long, they just-
they don't just.
They went to St. Aug and they remember seeing you, so
That's
they
all it
assumed
is.
you went to
Exactly.
St. Aug.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Exactly.
So go back to It's what a wonderful world. Kermit walks in and it says, "I got a gig for you."
Yeah, I'm free.
Sorry.
Basically,
Let's rewind 8 minutes or whatever.
I got a gig. Yeah, he's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, really? He's like, Shannon been telling me about you, blah blah blah. I'd already been like subbing for Shannon in like Snug Harbor, and like I told you, I was like literally following Shannon everywhere. I'm like, Hurlin was in New York at the time.
Okay.
So we like when you saw Hurlin, it was like seeing some deity. It was like, wait, Hurlin Riley's in town. Like, so we were like, but it wasn't like he wasn't as accessible at the time yet.
Okay.
As Shannon was. It's like I could go find Shannon. So I would spend a lot of time just chasing him around and trying to learn how to play this music. Just being that I was already subbing for him. He was one of Kermit's main drummers at the time. He started playing with Deanna Crawl, and he was with Harry. Shannon was already,
Yeah.
he was in his 30s, I guess, at the time. So he was already getting he's all over the place. And Kermit had just left Rebirth like a few years before that.
Yeah.
Was trying to, and was starting his own thing, kind of like I did with Soul, and was just trying to build, and I was just eager and cheap.
Too young and dumb to know any better.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but you're
gonna pay me $40. Oh,
I
man.
should have been paying them. Like I was like not, it was trial by fire for sure.
Well, I think it was, if anything else, more just music education, like everything
Absolutely,
else.
yeah.
Like Kermit, he's got a great personality. He's great on a microphone in front of a crowd. He knows how to make them love him.
And Ellis was always supportive of that. Like I would go on tour with Kermit and miss like 4 weeks of college.
Yeah.
And Ellis would just write me a note being like, it's fine. You're like, you're an ambassador for you representing the Brits.
That's how it works.
And like the history teacher would try to like fail me. I'm like, no, you gotta give me a B. Sorry.
You gotta give me a B.
Like, I can't lose my scholarship because they need me to make money. And if I lose my scholarship, then I can't afford to stay here, so I'm out of here. So it was like, like an athlete in college.
Yeah, basically.
Sort of situation. But I wasn't actually like, can't read. To clarify.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever.
You did learn some history after all, so
yeah.
I'm sure she was happy. Touring with Kermit, whatever, you started doing your own solo stuff while you were still obviously playing with Kermit regularly.
Years later, though, that wasn't until after Katrina, because it was like, right before Katrina, the first thing I recorded as a solo artist was in May of 2005.
Okay. Right before Katrina.
And I was touring with Kermit a bunch, but I was trying to I was already getting the feeling of like I need to break out. So when Katrina hit, I was actually in Brazil with a bunch of New Orleans musicians. Corey Henry had started a band, the Young Fellas, and then we went to Brazil with John Boutté to back up John Boutté, and we also did the brass band. We just took the gig. We're like, we'll do the brass band, we'll back up John Boutté, and we'll play our own gig, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But there's a bunch of New Orleans musicians on that gig, so we all got trapped in Brazil during Katrina. So I was kind of trying to lead Kermit's band then, even in 2005.
Huh.
And then it was like Kermit called me. He was like, we got gigs at Bullets and Vaughn's. Yes, I'm coming home. Yeah. And I'm still I even expressed that to him. I was like, I'm only gonna do this for 2 or 3 years, build my house back up, and then I'm, I got college degrees and trying to make my own records, blah blah blah. So me and Kermit always had a good relationship as far as me being a separate artist.
Yeah.
Whenever I need to be the barbecue swingers, I was there to do my job.
Yeah.
But he always just gave me leeway. He would let me go on tours with other people and do other gigs. So I love and respect him for that.
So you pulled a Shannon Powell and just found some dumb college kid to fill in for you that didn't know any better. Hey man, I'll give you $40 if you play this gig.
Right, it wasn't like that, but yeah. So I'm just saying honestly, I played that gig longer than I wanted to or than I needed to maybe. Tremaine had a lot to do with that because I probably wouldn't have played past maybe 2010 in my mind, I was already kind of.
You were already. I mean, you had already started aside from
right. Like I put my first record out in 2007.
Yeah.
So I was already like, I started Smokers World in 2007.
Yeah.
So like the first 7 years of Smokers World, I was still playing with Kermit.
Yeah, I mean,
and I like even booking my own like separate tours, and and I would piggyback off his tours, and like say we go to a tour California, they would all come home and I would just stay, and then my guys would meet me there, and like I was doing that for a while. With his blessing, and like I was cool with the promoters. That's a weird thing, I have band leaders in my band, so there's a lot of band leaders it's just a different approach.
Okay.
Like sometimes you might be like, hey, this is my gig, like don't do that.
Yeah.
Kermit's very encouraging, like no, go give me your record, go you know what I mean? So
well, he knew that he wasn't going to have you for your whole career.
Right, exactly.
Eventually,
right.
you're destined to have your own thing. You're gonna grow out of this, And not that growing out of Kermit's band is like it's not like it's small time or anything like that. But
no.
But it gave you a platform to get in front of some people
right.
and teach you. I mean, not just how to perform.
Well, I learned a lot from him as stage stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. But even probably a little bit of the business stuff too. Like, how do I even coordinate one of these tours? What am I supposed to do? How do I get this? How do I get that?
Exactly. So, of course.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a loss by any stretch. So I mean, obviously, it's been phenomenal for your career to get you to this point, and it got you on Treme, like you said.
Exactly.
Featured in like probably 20 episodes or something of Treme.
A lot, yeah. And which is cool because I'm still friends with David, Simon, and all those guys. Again, I was a musical theater kid, so it was like that was just one of those things where it was like they were all just discovering, like, oh wait, you can act. I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to tell y'all that the whole time. I'm like,
yeah, I did this in high school.
Y'all the ones that I'm like, y'all the ones that are forcing me to play drums for 6 days a week. Like I want to do this. You know what I'm saying? But like, I gotta pay rent.
Give me some lines. Give me some lines. Give me a speaking role. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, being a New Orleans drummer is like it's not like it's some shabby gig to have. So it's not like I wasn't ungrateful to be that. But it's been better to diversify,
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to do I'm sure plenty of people want to do one thing. I wouldn't mind doing one thing if it paid
Stan
well
Moore
enough.
just wants to play the drums.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to just play drums. He wants to teach drums. He wants to
but I'm just saying, I'm being tongue-in-cheek because it's my homie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we as most people outside New Orleans would both consider us New Orleans drummers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But how Stanton views the drums and how I view the drums, way different. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
But no is wrong. I'm just saying it's just a different. I have a different mentality.
Not wrong, just different. Yeah.
But if you listen to a Stan Moore or Alvin Ford or Terrence Houston or Terrence Higgins, like that was on the Fish, Samantha Fish video, or any of these guys, you're like.
It's almost like they were born with drumsticks in their hands.
Those guys are New Orleans drummers. I'm like,
yeah. Well,
I'm happy if y'all attempt to put me in that category, but I'm like, let's.
You count. You have a seasoned career as a New Orleans drummer.
I got the credentials, but I'm just telling you.
And I mean, it's just one of those other things. Like you can get on stage and play to the level of just about anyone. I mean, as long as you've been practicing, like you said.
Right. Yeah.
Time on your hand to practice.
Well, I mean, as far as the world's concerned, I'm still better than 80% of everybody else.
Yeah.
But in New Orleans, I could be the worst by.
Yeah. I mean,
I could be the worst guy in New Orleans and still be better than 80% of the world.
I would agree with that.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Stanton wakes up in the morning, makes coffee, plays drums for 2 hours, then checks his emails, plays drums for 2 more hours, then goes to the studio, plays drums for 2 more.
I wish you were joking. He's
always playing drums every day. He wakes up in the morning and has to play on the pad so he doesn't wake up his wife and his neighbors, But he wakes up on the road. He gets on the bus and sits in the front of the bus by himself and plays drums.
Right, and I just never been that dude.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where it's like as a young man, I'm like, you want to take me to Europe? Like, you want to give you gonna pay me to do this? Like, fine, like, cool.
Well,
but that's what I'm saying. So for me personally, all the social media shit has helped me tremendously in that regard. Because for 15 years, people saw me as just one.
Yeah, he drums. That's it.
Right, yeah. But even from an intelligence level, you know what I'm saying. Not that there's anything wrong with being a street cat, because we all need some of that in us. I'm just saying, people had a different perception of me before you could read that I wrote or hear I say, and people were like, "Oh, expecting him to say that or whatever. You know what I mean? Which has garnered me more leeway to do other things.
Maybe.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if that maybe just my personal opinion of you is a little bit different, but I think something that...
I'm talking about in the early years, Tank. I'm talking about pre-social media.
I haven't known you for 30 years.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about pre-social media. Mm-hmm. It was all just based on what we did in our actual social interactions.
Okay, all right.
As far as gigs and tourism. I'm just telling you, people had a different perception of me, which I never mind. I was like...
Well, when I met you, you had been playing with Kermit for years. That's
exactly.
How I met you.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't know Young Smoker, as it were.
Right.
Little Mr. Smoker or anything like that.
It was a different going on.
Let's talk a little bit about Smoker's World and your own music when you broke out into being a solo artist. You have a couple albums, Blurple Pain, which is a lot of fun, and DWB. Both great albums, and like you said, you've been around some of these dudes for so long that was it easy?
Actually,
to
it is
get
what
them?
it is too, which is not in digital format.
No,
but I'm
okay.
gonna fit. My first album came out in 07.
I mean, is it still around? Because I don't think I've
It's
ever
around,
seen it.
yeah, and see, it's around.
Okay.
But I need to digitize it, but that's another
All right, yeah, get it on to
something,
Spotify or whatever
exactly.
people
but it doesn't
put music
matter.
on.
But
yeah.
technically I have 3 records out.
Okay. Well,
Smokers World has 3 records out.
Yeah, Smokers World does. Smokers World does. On the first one, you got Kawan, Calvin Johnson, Mike Dillon, Kang, and Matt Peoples. Like, were these guys that you had already been using already in the group? Like, they came in on the album, obviously, but...
Yeah, Peoples came a little later because Quickie Mart hooked me up with Peoples.
Okay.
Kawan I had known from... Billy, what was that? Wow, EOE. Remember EOE?
I do remember EOE.
Yeah. So, Kawan I had known from that. Zarba I met was working here.
Yeah,
actually,
that's Matt Peoples.
Yeah, Matt Peoples was working here. But he also, for Gravity A, through Gravity A, Chris Royal, Danny Abel, and Quickie Mart was the guy that told me to get Peoples on my song on Blurple Pain.
He's got a cool voice, man.
Yeah,
He's got a cool voice.
Of course, that started a whole bunch of things. As you know.
Yeah. We'll get into some more stuff with Matt Peoples for sure. And then a couple of years, almost 1 year, 2 years, I guess, after Blurple Pain was DWB, which obviously stands for Driving While Black, featuring people, a lot of the same people, but including Chris Royal, Matt Peoples, Nicholas Payton, and Jamie Bernstein, which is fun. I like Jamie too.
Right.
DWB. So obviously, I don't want to try and get too terribly political or anything like that, but we, as much as you like.
It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, Driving While Black. Well, I mean, just to at least your eyeballs, your view, your state of what you see, at least in the past year or so. Like, are you seeing anything improving? I'm not looking for you to try and make some sort of massive stance culturally or whatever else, but just your opinion. Are things getting better or not? At least in our little microcosm of New Orleans.
I don't know, Tank. I can tell you this. I mean, Blurple Pain's almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
Right? And then Driving While Black was 2014, I think. So the way I feel about it, like, I mean, it was difficult for me at first, like, especially when I first left Kermit's band, because people were like, damn, we really love Freeman. Like, we love your energy, but it's like, you're in blackface on your own record, blah, blah, like, I don't know, like, should we hire you for this gig? I'm like, it was just weird. I'm just telling you, it's weird. It was weird for me, like, and I was just, the records I was putting out wasn't controversial. It was just like, this is,
I don't
art I'm trying to make. I know you didn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It was strange, and then like when the Soul Brass Band started, which is like very universally loved. It's easy to love a brass band, especially with the, with the personnel I have in the band, and they're all like beloved people. So then people we get hired all over the world. But a lot of people that hire Soul Brass Band would never hire Smokers World. So so I'm like. I'm not gonna turn down any gigs, but I have to be conscious of this, right? Not Tips, by the way. Tips hired every band I ever had. So I want to make that clear.
No, that's okay.
I'm just.
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
Just why we love this place.
I'm not looking for a pat on the back.
I know you're not. I'm just saying,
yeah.
but just I want to clarify that while I'm making this statement.
Totally cool. Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of people that would not hire that band for whatever reasons. The weed thing. There's a lot of racism. There's some sexism. We just talking about real.
But is it any different from
it's
so
not.
many hip hop acts?
It's not. It's not. But
Really,
it's not.
Really
but when you're a New
stuff.
Orleans artist and people, you're a barbecue swinger and people they don't want. It's a different. You know what I'm trying to say.
They want something that's good for the whole family.
It's a pigeonhole, exactly.
They want something that's good for the whole family.
So now a lot of those same people too are like Black Lives Matter. I'm like, oh really?
Do they now? Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I feel a little. I haven't made many statements. People are like, how do you feel? I'm like, go to Spotify. Go to. What do you mean? How do I feel? Like,
I've been telling you how I feel.
Like I was on blackface on my own record.
Yeah.
What do you want from me? Right? You know what I mean? So, the current movement. But to answer your question, no.
No. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that you're not wrong. That's for sure.
Right.
As you see it, if you're not seeing anything better, if you don't think things are truly improving. Like if anything, it seems like.
Believe me, I love my white friends championing it and posting this and going hard. Don't get me wrong. I feel. To clarify, I feel the movement. But just to answer your question directly, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if we know yet.
We've talked about it enough. Soul Brass Band.
Yeah, love it. By the way,
and started you and James Martin, right? I guess you guys are the co-creators.
Actually, not even. James came a little later.
Okay.
Well, James and I we started MFG together.
Okay.
So it came.
MFG was first.
MFG was first.
Okay.
But only for like a week or two. It was like a weird.
But you recorded songs.
Right. James and I were on the road with Glenn David Andrews. After I was out of Kermit's band, and Glenn, who I had known since he was a kid too, needed a drummer. He needed. It was like an in between tour where he needed somebody to fill in drums while he's grooming his next dude or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. I got you. I was like, I'll do it if I can room with that dude James Martin because I just wanted to pick his brain. Because I was like James, I had met when he was in high school. So I played gigs with them actually. When I was still a young man, I played gigs with James and Shorty and.
I was gonna say you're probably at least 10 years older than him, though.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think I'm 9 years older than James,
Okay.
10 years older than Shorty, 12 years older than Shorty, 10 years older than James, something like that.
Okay.
I'm older than those guys.
Yeah.
But when I was still a young man, they were in high school. I played gigs with them a few times.
Yeah, because he was in Orleans Avenue, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and Mike Bass and before Pete and John Baptiste. Because I think Joey Peoples was like 13. His mom wouldn't let him play in the
He's
club.
the youngest one in the
or
band.
something like that.
Was at least.
So there was like a New Year. There was a few gigs. I played some Funky Buck gigs with them when they were. And then me and James had done. We've been on like James Andrews gigs together. Just since he was a kid and went to Loyola and was like a professional. I'd only played maybe a handful of gigs with him in that time.
Okay.
Was like, but I had my own. I'm like, I like that dude. What's up? Certain people have an affinity towards. So when Glenn asked me to go on the road with him, I was like, I'll do it if I can room with James Martin. So we developed a kinship on the road. It was like, man, we should start our own band, Because Julius McKee Jap was on tuba on this tour.
Okay.
So it's like a lot of sound checks and just rehearsals in between with just us playing trio. Me, Jap, and James. It's like some interesting like sax, tuba, drum trio.
I was gonna say, were y'all the only three people backing up Glenn David?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a real strong thing, right? And then James was like, yeah, I'm learning how to use my pedals and because you can make a sax sound like you've worked enough.
Ben
gigs
Elman
here.
owns the place. Yes,
Thank you.
I'm familiar.
So you know how that works. So Jap wasn't really ready to do that. So it was John Gross at first. It was like because John Gross was also experimenting in all these things with his tuba. So I mean, we could do some cool power trio, right? So we're not gonna write any songs. We're just gonna play a set by all just power trio. So it's like we'll play Led Zeppelin, and we're gonna play Beastie Boys, and we're gonna play, like that. And I was like, let's do Genie in a Bottle, right? Or let's do Back That Ass Up. So so we were doing
playing
that.
Some pop songs,
right? Just like in this, and people just see a tuba and sax in it, but they hear like, so it's just it's a thing. It's an artistic thing.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that. So then, my friend Lala Robinson, who was a production coordinator, location, whatever, she worked in production. She called me about doing there's a music video that CeeLo Green is filming, and they want a New Orleans second line scene in the video. But the director's from California, he's never been to New Orleans, and he needs somebody to consult with the director on so how he can film this video.
Yeah.
Like, we'll pay you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. Word. So
money's money, yeah.
So I go to meet the director, Cafe Chafalaya, and of course he's like, so there's a funeral. He's like, so there's Mardi Gras Indians there, but I'm like, whoa. I'm like, it's not. I'm like, who died? I'm like, if Dr. John dies, it may be. I'm like, no, this is not how this works. So I had to like talk him down. So then we start talking about like what happens at the funeral and the second line, blah blah. And at some point he's like, what's the name of the band? I'm like, what band? He's like, the brass band in the video. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, what's the name of your band? I'm like, I don't have a brass band, dude. I'm just here to consult.
Yeah,
he's
I'm a
like,
drummer and a consultant and an actor.
He's like, well, look, I'm a graphic designer. I want to make all the band. So what we got to call it something. What should we call it? And they had sent me the song, and the song was called Music for My Soul. I'm like, well, the song's called Music for My Soul, and he rhymes every stanza with the word soul. And I'm like, just from an aesthetic, literally from a producer, freaking
hammer that soul in there, right?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just from a producer aesthetic consultant standpoint. I'm like, yo, if you made sashes with soul on them and the parade hats was like, that will look cool as hell. Like, you should do that. Just call it soul. So this dude literally went, designed a bass drum cover, designed a set, designed a whole brass band work. So we go to film. And I just got my homies, Kevin Lou. I don't even know who was in the first video. I think it was Kevin Lewis, Calvin Johnson, and John Gross, and then Aaron Lambert and Terrence Taplin.
Okay.
Homies. Not a band. All dudes I've played with, plenty, but...
Yeah, I mean, you just have to act like you're playing. You don't have to...
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And there's no brass band music in the song.
No.
It's just, it doesn't matter what we do. So we do that. The director freaking loves it. CeeLo loves it. The director has a thank you. He's like, hey, man, I designed all this. I'm giving it to you. So he gives me a bass drum cover, a soul sash, so that has everything. I'm like, brass band. I might be able to use it for something. Cool, I'll keep that. In case I get another call about whatever. 2 weeks later, the same lady, Lala, we want you guys, Anthony Davis commercial, Nike.
Yeah.
What? All right. I get Leon, I get Calvin. There's still not really a band. We're just... So they're trying to be stealthy about it. We're filming a commercial on a Sunday on Royal Street, early Sunday. But these people don't understand how French Quarter works. I'm like, everybody's out because they're going to get brunch. So everybody on the street recognizes all of us, and we're Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
So
people are gonna recognize him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and there's signs that say Soul Brass Band because they just made signs he's walking down the street or in the commercial, and so people start tagging it, hashtagging. So and then all of a sudden my DMs are like, "Can your brass band play my Christmas party?" I'm like, "What? I don't have a."
My TV brass band?
But you know where Soul Brass Band's first gig was, huh?
Where was that?
At Tipitina's.
Was it?
Our first actual gig was at Tipitina's. We opened up for Red Barat.
Was that y'all's first gig as Soul
October
Brass
2016.
Band? I thought you had played some part.
That was our first actual gig. Was right here.
No
Opened up for
kidding.
Red Barat. Shamar Allen played on the gig.
Yeah.
Who's on my record, but I never played gigs with us before or since, really. And Steve Walker, like I literally put a band, like it was me and Aaron and James was there, but Calvin was on the gig too, I think. But like, yeah, it was like the first time we played a gig, and we played all. It was like a Rebirth cover band set.
Well, I remember. We
literally played a Rebirth. We literally played a Rebirth brass band set.
Yeah.
As a solo, because that's all I was like. Yeah. These are songs we all know. Like, here we go.
Like, hey, you guys know that song? Yeah.
Right.
We sound like Rebirth.
Right.
We sound like Rebirth.
Right. But then because Sonny and all those guys are really good friends of mine.
Yeah.
So then we all sat in with Barat too, and that meant down, and that was like, oh, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
And then
I think this TV band we have is a real band, guys. What do you think?
And then Tom Thayer they started doing Crawfish Boys at DBA, remember?
Yeah.
And then Tom Thayer hired us to play and that was the DBA became, and then we just like literally.
I remember when y'all first played here, and I knew that it was new.
That was our first live.
I knew it was new.
That was our first gig.
I did not know it was brand new. I thought that y'all had literally just done, hey, we've been rehearsing, we did a couple private parties, we did this, we did that.
No rehearsal.
I didn't know that was your first like live show in front of an audience. No idea.
No, because Red Barat's people knew me, because so those guys go, so.
They've been playing here on and off for a few years now.
So my cousin in New York is married to a Pakistani lady.
Okay.
Like a Bengali Indian lady, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like his best man and the MC of his wedding, because he's a filmmaker, so he did his wedding like it was like a show. Mm-hmm. Red Barat played the wedding. It's 2009.
All right.
In New York.
I had not heard of him yet.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So like 2 songs in, I'm like, yo, like. So they take a break. I'm like, dude, so what are y'all doing? They're like, oh, we just play on the East Coast mostly, like a lot of Connecticut and Massachusetts, we don't play.
That one bar in Brooklyn.
Like, yeah, like I was like, yo, you guys should be like
touring the rest of the world.
Yes, like you guys should be like international stars. And I think their first gig in New Orleans, and well, you can fact check this, but I think their first gig, was with me and Mike Dillon at the Howlin' Wolf Den.
Was it? I mean, we can double check it. The first time I remember...
World B. Freeman was, because that was another band I had with Mike Dillon and Chris Royal and Brian Coogan. And I think they opened up for us at the Howlin' Wolf Den, son.
To me, I mean, I'm not saying
say 2010-ish, but
okay,
it doesn't
that's
matter.
Possible, because they didn't play here till 11 or 12.
The point is, that's what I'm saying. I had a relationship with them, so they just needed an opener. So they called me like, hey, don't you have a band that going to open for us? And I was like, yeah. But he was probably thinking Smoker's World or something. And I was like, you know what? I do have a band that can open for that.
Y'all did end up recording an album, Levels, which is a really good album. And on Level, first of all, produced by Ben Elman. We mentioned him earlier. Featuring Ivan Neville, Ben Elman, Chris Royal, Corey Henry, Kid Chocolate Brown, Danny Abel, Shamar Allen, Mike Dillon, Erica Falls, and many, many others. Awesome album. When you started writing songs for this, some of these were MFG songs. Were you already thinking of collaborating with this many people when you started putting the music together for it?
Well, James Martin and I put out a record actually a year before called James Martin, Derrick Freeman and James Martin Present Soul.
Okay.
Because it was like, because we had started recording for MFG and then Soul took over. So Soul Brass Bands and a few of them songs. But we put a record out that like, Nigel Hall, Raja Cassis, a bunch of the same people on that record too.
All right.
It was like we literally put it out like during Jazz Fest of the year before.
Well, you put it out when you were already moved on to something different though, right?
So it was just like
you weren't promoting it like you
but
would
we'd already
have.
put in the work. But we titled it Soul just to like have the brand to start to be out there. But it wasn't a Soul Brass Band record, although there was Soul Brass Band. Soul with a capital S was the Tower Power song we did on that record. And then we did the theme songs you heard us do, like we do The Price is Right and all that. So we did that's on that. That's actually on the first Soul record, which is it's just a me and James Martin record that features a bunch of New Orleans people.
Yeah,
including Soul Brass Band. But technically that was the first record Soul was on. But
Levels specifically though. Did you know that, hey, we're gonna have, we got these songs, we want to put it on?
No, so when Levels happened, it was like I was like, who buys brass band records? I'm like, everybody might pretend like they do. I'm like, we all have a Rebirth record, we all have a Soul Rebels record, but like beyond that, I'm like, you got a collection of brass band CDs at your house?
No, I do not.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm you know, we all love brass. I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
saying,
I'm
like,
not- it's not-
this music does not. It's not. So I'm like, for me as a record producer, and you know, and I know how much this costs. I'm like, I'm not trying to spend 20 G's to make a brass band record for no
is
reason.
it worth making a record?
Right. So it's just like so. But you know, but then I'm working with Leon, Kid Chocolate. I'm working with Chris Worrell. I'm working with James Martin. I'm working with Danny Abel. I'm like, we all collectively should make a record though. And we're like, how do we make it a brass band?
But it's not a brass band record.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's still not. I mean,
Yeah.
Our attempt was to try to make even a sort of pseudo brass band record.
Yeah.
We tried. So I'm like, so this is where Ben Elman comes to play, because Ben Elman and I are contemporaries, right?
Uh-huh.
And when we both started writing and producing records around the same time.
Yeah.
Ben's had a lot more acclaim as me, and I've tried, like, Ben produced one track on Blubber Pain, the title track actually, but I wanted Ben, weren't trying to work with Ben for years, and Ben's always like, you're better at that than me, like, I don't want to, you know, shit was more in my warehouse, like the R&B stuff, the hip hop stuff.
For him, it's probably, what am I going to tell you?
Like,
How am I going to help you?
Right.
Yeah.
But it was like, we need a brass band record. It's like, okay, cool. But then we hooked up with Count, and you know, Count has done the Stanton Records and the Galactic and the Trombone Shorty and the Tank and the Bangers and the Revivalists. So it's like, so the point is, we all got together, like maybe once a week or twice a week at Leon's house, working on these songs, and we came up with like a mathematical concept, like as far the circle of fifths, the Metatron's cube mixed with John Coltrane's mathematical thing. We just use that as a template to write songs. Like,
Okay.
let's write these songs in shapes. Like, there's a triangle, there's a square, there's a hexagon. So that represents different, like, you know, the song that's a triangle has 3 chords in it.
Yeah.
The song that's a hexagon has 6 chords in it. We're just structuring songs like that, just to give us something to start
It gives
creating
you some
off
kind
of
of thematic,
some
whatever,
type of
yeah.
like, 'cause we're all too musical and too all over the place. This could take years. Like, we
Yeah,
need to,
if
like,
you guys, you're a bunch of music nerds.
right, we need to like figure out what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. Like, literally with a whiteboard, like writing like chord changes. Like, can we make a song to this? Does it make sense? Seriously. And so that's how that started. And then it was a great record though. Like, I'm super proud of it.
For sure. I mean, does it ever get difficult when you have that many artists on one record?
Always. And like, they were all like, even Count, a lot of when I work with engineers, like new engineers, they can't believe it, because like the way I do it is like, it's some different type of like from 12 to 2 I'm these 3 trumpet players are coming in, and then from 2 to 4 like this bass player is coming in, and from 4 to 6 it's like Erica Foss is coming in, and then from 6 to 8 blah, blah, it's just like, that's how it's like it's a different type of thing. It's a musical theater.
Yeah.
Like, you're on, you're
Fancy
off.
art high
You're
school.
on,
That's what it is.
you're off.
Fancy
Like, you know what I'm
pants
saying?
art high school.
So that's how you can record a record with all these people in like 4 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, is that how quickly you were able to do all the recording sessions?
Nah, I mean,
Okay.
we
I was about to say, you
cheated.
did 4 days? Holy
The
yeah.
initial yeah, but then I did a lot of stuff with Ben privately.
Okay.
Like all the special guests, we added that later.
Gotcha. Amongst all the songs, there is one thing that stands out that I wanted to ask you about on that album specifically. You mentioned Erica Falls for Ease On Down the Road. What made you pick that song? For anyone who's not familiar, tell everyone what Ease On Down the Road is from.
Ease On Down the Road is from the musical was turned into a movie, The Wiz, which was a black version of The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
That was all the music was written by Quincy Jones, who's
Yes.
obviously one of my heroes. Which we talk about Low End Theory players. But you know who gave me the idea for that was Murph Reeves.
Murph from WWOZ.
We played, because you know when you do the OZ, the live broadcast for the Fun Drive,
Yeah.
you don't always play this on the records. So I think we played like a Curtis Mayfield summer song or something, just for the OZ archives, you know, to bless them with something only they would have, right?
Yeah.
So, and then Murph is like, I should do Ease On Down the Road. And it was like, and I was like, all right, Murph. Like,
So I haven't heard that song in 35 years.
yeah, so we started trying. So we did it a few times with Michael Watson singing it, which is awesome because Michael Watson's incredible voice, right? But it's just like
it lends itself to a female voice, though.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, I mean, Erica's place, like one of my favorite people in the world, and like just people.
Yeah.
But also like incredible singer. So it was a no-brainer for that, and Chris Royal did that arrangement.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out it was killer. Yeah.
Here's the thing: like when I was doing the preparations for this, and I went back and looked at the tracks, and everything. I was like, oh man, forget that song is on there.
Right.
And I went back and went on YouTube or whatever and listened to the original version from the movie that's on the clip of that. Y'all sounds better, and maybe it's just the technology is better or something.
No, it was like first. So this is the thing about like that's some of the hardest to sing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so Erica has got a.
She's a monster, man.
She's got a different
voice.
gift, man.
Yeah.
Like we recorded some song, I think with Galactic I can't remember which song, but it was a song where like she and I and I think maybe Cyril were all singing background and song.
Her
So
voice,
like, and my voice is loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing like maybe this far from the mic.
Mm-hmm.
Erica's like 20 feet behind me. She's like standing against the wall on the other side of the room, and just like crushing me on the mic. I'm like, no, I'm right in front of like.
She got pipes, man.
It's a whole different.
So it literally just because Murph threw it out there, like was it out of the blue? Like it wasn't. Was there any reason why he thought of that specifically?
Of that song?
Yeah.
It's because of Murph.
No, that's what I'm saying. What made Murph like it just?
I don't know. You gotta ask him.
Okay. Well, all right.
I just thought it was a good idea when he said it. I was like, yep.
That's hilarious, man. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for Soul Brass Band, you have literally taken them around the world: Europe, Middle East, Asia. I think Asia.
Yeah.
Even as far as Baton Rouge or whatever.
Right.
What? Sorry, that's a bad joke.
Funny, but
Yeah.
True though.
What kind of gigs have you seen with Soul Brass Band that have surprised you? Like, have you guys taken it anywhere where it's like, oh man, look what we're doing in front of these people? Because you're not a typical brass band. That's the other
we
thing.
went to Istanbul.
Okay.
And
Not Constantinople, but Istanbul.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, that's for the few They Might Be Giants nerds that might be watching.
It
this.
was yes.
Yeah.
It was technically we were in Constantinople, but yes, we're in Istanbul, and we played like this world music fest with these different like, Middle Eastern like bands with like lots of tablas and percussion and like.
Okay.
It was real hip. Like we had a vibe, with those guys. We played. Well, I played in Tel Aviv. When we played in Tel Aviv, we did it as a jazz quintet. It was a soul light, I guess I would put. It was weird.
But you did a jazz set.
Although
though.
Tel Aviv is pretty hip, and there's I think the low end theory players would crush Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we took a gig and it wasn't necessarily the right festival for us. We did like a Lester Young tribute, which we crushed, but it's not really our bag. It was just like what they wanted us to do.
All right.
So it was like a lot of James Martin and him singing and doing Lester, which was great. And but it was weird. But like Istanbul was great because we like did our actual show.
Yeah.
And people like really loved it. Yeah, it's different. It's not. You're right. It's a brass band. I mean, and we do plenty of parades.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Even just putting brass band in the title of the band, almost like no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing whatsoever. It just like it frames it for anyone who hasn't heard y'all. Like, oh, typical brass band stuff, right?
Well, also, but like we talked about earlier, just because like the reverence I have for like my homies, like dudes that have been doing that their whole life. Like I'm not gonna try attempt to do that. So if like I'm gonna have a brass band, it's got to be something that's not typical. You know what I'm saying? And not just, and we try to make it clear with people. I mean, we try to make it clear to people too. Like,
to me
like,
personally, you're a soul and funk band.
No, I'm just telling you. But like like if some people like, I'll tell people I'm like, oh man, y'all should get the hot 8 for that, or like you should get the, you know what I mean? Like I'm very like, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things.
You know what you're like. I know what you're looking for.
Right.
I'm not what you're looking for. You're looking for this.
Like y'all should get Big 6 for that. I mean, I'm conscious of that because I don't want to fool people either. Where it's like, but because ours is very much a stage thing, but internationally, sometimes your way into the festival is to be the brass band that does the street parade. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's gonna take for us to get to your festival. But like, at the same time, trying to let them know, like, hey, so you know, like, we have like these Grammy Award winning artists that are like incredible singers, and like we have all these original songs, and like, and we have guitars and shit. We can play different. So I'll try to let people know, like, if they don't want that, we can also do that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. And we're starting to get to the point where people actually know the band, so I don't have to go through all that. They know what they're hiring. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's probably one of the reasons why you probably ultimately ended up having this band, is so that you don't have to be pigeonholed into one thing, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, I mean, like I said, man, you're a born entertainer, be it performance on stage, acting, whatever else. Like, even just shooting, like, it's fun. Like, I've been
Right.
smiling, my face hurts from smiling because
Right.
I just like watching you talk sometimes, man. So it's one of those things.
It's always, but a lot of that I learned. I mean, to go back, I keep trying to keep towards tips, and I'm like, show tips some love. But no, but seriously,
Don't worry,
like,
our logo's up here. You're wearing a tip shirt. Like, people know where we are.
but like,
you know, people know it.
like the amount of I learned from Kermit. But like specifically this place, the amount of stuff I learned from Houseman
Yeah.
and Cyril, you know, and people like that, and Anders, and you know, just I'm just telling you, it shapes me, and you know, and people that know me, they can see it. They're like, oh, that's like I felt that that was some Houseman you pulled out.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right?
yeah, I'm like, what do you think I got this from? Or like it's same with the drumming. It was like, well, that's some Hurley Riley. I'm like, it wasn't like, because I don't want to insult him. I'm like, but yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just one of
You know
those
what I
things.
mean?
Like, you get it, man. That's all I
Right.
can say is you get it. You know that you can take yourself seriously or not. Either way, like, put on a good show, whether it's fun or whatever. That's me
right.
just a rambling compliment for you.
I appreciate it, but yeah.
So we mentioned Low End Theory Players a couple times. Started out as a tribute band, obviously.
Also an accidental band.
Yeah.
by the
Also,
way.
was that accidental? What was the very?
It
what was
wasn't
the
that. It wasn't
genesis?
accidental. Like we had been like, so Zarba and I had Gravity A. Let's go back.
Okay.
So when I started doing Smokers World or trying to start leading my own band and having my own gigs, like regular gigs, like I'm doing weeklies now or whatever. Yeah, like I want to find younger cats that I could hire to try to mold or to, you know, inspire me even. So Jason Butler, Chris Royal, Scott Jackson, things started happening. Like, okay, we're starting some gigs. Like, sound good. So I remember like learning about Groove Sect and learning about Gravity A and like.
And Groove Sect has come up a lot of times on the stage.
No,
while
I'm
we're
just
doing these
saying. No, I'm
interviews.
just saying. But so like when I
Sorry.
was getting into and like so now, and I'm talking to Scarrick, and I'm talking to Eric Krasno, and they're teaching me about that at large thing, like Nikki Glaspie.
Yeah.
A lot of guidance from her, like about. It's now I'm like, oh, I can be an at-large artist because I can play drums and I can MC and I can, so I can, you know, there's all kind of different bands I can sit in with, like the New Master Sounds or the Honey Island Swamp Band or Galactic or Lettuce or Dark, you know what I'm saying? There's Corey Glover and I was becoming way more from and the Jam Cruises and the Bear Creeks so Gravity A would start. They would do their Wednesdays every Wednesday Blue Now. We go sit in or whatever. So they would start doing these theme gigs every once in a while. Like Halloween, we do like a Madonna record or a Jay-Z record or blah, blah. So one of the years, I think it was 2015 also, what are we going to do? Well, it was like, let's do Midnight Marauders. We're trying to find like Hollywood, like Halloween themed records. Let's do Midnight Marauders. I'm like, Zara will be Q-Tip, I'll be Fife, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't even think we did like maybe 6 songs on that record at 12 Mile Limit, like the little local bar.
That's just a neighborhood bar in Mid-City.
Because I was staying in that neighborhood at the time. It was just I was playing gigs once a month there with Smokers World when I was developing. We were just trying.
Not much of a stage or anything.
No,
just,
but it was great for us because it felt like old school New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like back in the '90s, like a Dragon's Den vibe. It's everybody's on top of us, and we could do whatever. We play like Kansas songs or whatever,
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So 12 mile was like, want you to throw a costume party. I'm like, cool, we'll throw a costume party. Come as your favorite smoker. And then we'll do Midnight Marauders. So there's people like, I dressed up as Thurgood Jenkins and then Zarba dressed up as Billy Hoyle from White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah.
Some people dressed up as Daft Punk. People just like, come as your favorite. Cheech and Chong were there. You know, it was cool. So we did the Midnight Marauders, and maybe 40 people in 12 mile, which is
It's not a big bar. Like
but
40
it's packed.
people.
40,
is,
it's like this is packed.
Yeah.
So me and Zarba crushed it though. Like,
Yeah.
and we had done stuff together with Gravity A. You know, we're both on Gravity A's record, and stuff like that. One Eye Jack show. That.
Yeah.
So but all the people were like, man, I was killer. Like, y'all should do that Tribe again. It's like, all right, so like, y'all want to do it?
So like be a cover band? Is that what you're saying? Right?
Yeah, but we were like, I mean,
It's cool for Halloween, but
yeah, exactly. That's what I was like. But again, that happened to me before. Like a bunch of happened. Like we used to do Ignition, but of course we'll never do that again because of R. Kelly, of course. But we did Ignition, same thing. It's one Halloween, and like people loved it. And I started doing my show, and people would love it. I did it here a few times, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, y'all want to do a Tribe show? We'll do a Tribe show. So we were gonna do it. Honestly, we were gonna do a Blue Now because I was like, we can't fill up Tips yet. That was my thing. We opened up or something. Like Gravity A opened up for somebody, I think, at Tips. I think we did like a little mini set of it or something. I can't remember I don't know how we got the Tips gig initially, but somehow you guys saw us do it somewhere. And it was like turning one of those things. It was like Blue Now, let's do it at Tips. Like, you think that's gonna work? Like,
yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't remember the very first one here.
All I'm telling you is like
what brought it on specifically.
I don't know how. I can't remember either. But the point is, it was already booked, and before we did the show, Fife died.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
But when we initially booked it, it was a reach. Like my guarantee was low, which was fine. I was like, no, we don't know. We'll just like y'all give us the date, cool. It was like one of those things. Like, and then in the time before we booked it and did the show, Fife died.
Yeah.
So it was like, so now it's like when Tribe Called Quest Tribute was like a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, at least like it was on people's minds.
Right.
Like,
So
it was
like, oh.
to see that actually. Yeah.
So the first one we did here, it wasn't sold out, but it was like 400 people. Like, oh. Like, okay.
There's people that want to see this, huh? Yeah.
Right. So we did get a few months later, and that one sold out. And then when we did the Outkast tribute, it was like,
yeah, we did the Outkast one. It was packed. Yeah.
that was it. And then after that, it became a thing. Again, it was like I said.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and you know, I know there's a lot of like purists for New Orleans music venues sometimes, like, oh man, you shouldn't have a cover band or a tribute band or whatever else. We don't do it every night. Like it's a rarity.
And look who's in that band. It's all the most. H.A. Hall's in that band.
Yeah, who's in that band already? Like I already like Gravity. I think Foo is awesome. I love Drew.
Foo's in that band. So I'm saying that we have Gravity A's in that band. Mike Dillon's in that band.
Yeah.
Like, Chris Royal's in that band. Like, what are y'all talking about? Like this band, James Martin's in it. Like this band is killing.
Yeah, this is how a cover band wishes they could sound, or look like, or whatever.
No, and you know how we do. Like you know, when we do those tributes, it's like. There's a lot of rehearsing. It's like there's characters. It's like an acting job for me too, because I'm like, oh, I'm playing Chuck D right now, or I'm playing Scarface right now, or whatever. So I love that. But also, the Quincy Jones in me. Like eventually, I would like to. Eventually, I'm not gonna even be on those shows.
You're just gonna manage them.
Yeah, just put it because there's a talent in putting that together too, and knowing who can do what, which is, trust me, that's way more difficult than the actual just show. Like, especially like an Outkast or like somewhere it's like, okay, well there's 8 different rappers. Yeah, some of us are gonna play multiple, sure, but like, and sometimes we need 4 rappers on stage plus 3 singers.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
so it's
coordinating it all is
it's
a
a
nightmare.
whole thing from a production standpoint.
Yeah, we're used to pressing play and just listening to it and be like, oh
but
that's what it
it's
sounds
extremely enjoyable. It's so fulfilling. Like when we pull one of those shows off.
I mean, to pull it off with a full band, not just
It
playing
is, no,
a DJ playing a
it's like,
karaoke song. Yeah, you're doing a real band playing those songs.
Yeah, with like real like
with real musicians,
New Orleans cats.
Yeah,
like
real cats. Yeah,
right. It's
exactly.
not like right.
For sure. Well, again, like you said, it was like acting, and I want to bring up acting one more time, just because you have a legitimate set of acting credits as well. Like, it's not BS. Like you can be considered a real actor, I guess. You've got your own. I don't know if you're a member of the Guild or whatever they call that sort of thing.
I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, but you know, you got some good credits. Things like Treme we talked about. Queen Sugar, which is a big show, and American Horror Story, but a lot of short films, things like The Funeral Band, which I haven't seen. I wanted to try and find it.
I produced that, actually.
Were you the producer on that? Okay,
yeah.
Well, again, I want to talk to you about that. Also, something funny that I watched earlier today called Holy Men, where you played a rabbi. I hadn't seen that one. That was hilarious. But tell me about Dumb Smart Industries. That is who you work with as a producer, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
My good friend Nick Pino, who y'all know is DJ Jermaine Quiz, and also he was in Jealous Monk, who also performed here.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and also,
Nick's been playing here for a long time.
Of course. And Zarba, who bartended here. We started that company. We just started getting together and writing skits.
Yeah.
You know, like as a comedy team, like more as a writing team, just like shooting. Like we're all sitting around getting high together anyway. Like we might as well like make productive, right? So it's like, are we talented? Like, shouldn't we use this?
Is this gonna be funny to anyone else?
Right. So it started just like a lot of skit writing, and little by little, I mean, Nick Pino is like I know people are good at work ethic, you know, but this dude is like the amount of he's learned in 7, 8, 9 years since we've been doing this. Incredible. Let me see your lighter, bro.
Yeah, well, I mean,
so I'm just saying, but like, so like, and you know, as you Zarba works for you, so you know his work ethic. I'm just saying, and you know mine. So it's just the three of us together was like, we can't just like, how many skits can we write? Like, we got to put some of this on tape. It's just too funny.
Yeah.
It's funny, or at least, like you said, find out if it's funny, whatever.
But aside from funny, like there's real drama. It's serious. Like it is.
Yeah. So we put a lot of work into that. And
award-winning nomination, all that stuff.
Nick is an incredible writer, incredible director, and we started doing music videos. And we won an award for doing the Lyrics Boring video.
Yeah, that's right.
So that kind of was, you know, and then.
And Nick did the
film
video,
scene, exactly, and with the film scene and the music scene. They're different in New Orleans.
Absolutely.
Different animals. And so like a lot of people knew me and respected me as a musician, all of us as musicians. And so it was weird navigating. So we decided to start a production company because it's like, let's just start putting out because we need content. You know, when you go to pitch, I mean,
yeah, it's nice to have a few videos.
Yeah, because when you have something, they're like, "Oh, that's nice. What else you got?" That's all. That's always how that happens. That's nice. What else you got? It sounds perfect. That's exactly what I would expect them to say. I mean, not in the industry, but that's exactly what
it's how I would picture Hollywood types and whatever.
Right.
Else.
So it's like, well, let's just start making and have enough. So when we're presented with this, we know.
I mean, are there plans? Have y'all been working on more stuff? Are there things in the future for it?
Yeah, I mean, we have several actually screenplays, but you know, but with COVID, just throwing a wrench in things. And
well, I mean, it's Nick's
trying to move the Well, Nick's working has this huge project he's working on, which I'm not going to disclose. Because it's not my business.
That's fine
to disclose, but it's a network thing that they've occupied him, and which is good because he needs to get paid. Yep. But
absolutely. We mentioned before that you used to work here at Tipitina's. When did you work here at Tipitina's?
It's funny, right, when you asked me that question. I worked at Tipitina's. Well, okay, so Crunk was a band that started in late 98, 99. We toured a lot. I just had the 20th anniversary of this in August of 2000.
Okay.
We flipped the van. I flipped the van. I was driving. But we were all in the van. We flipped the van. Had to take a sabbatical as a result.
Okay. Still on sabbatical?
No, we no, 'cause we got back. We had another like 2 years after that.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
But during the time we were off,
that ended.
we came back. Jazz Fest 2001
Okay.
was when we came back.
All right.
But during that time, I had my shoulder up from the wreck. One of my best friends ever, may rest in peace, Brian Slate, did your job. He's the bar manager here, and then Adam Shipley was
He was the GM
running the place, and then Stacy Fortenberry, who's like my sister. They were all working here, so they gave me a job to work security and tips.
So that was 2001?
2000.
2000, okay.
So I worked the backstage security, which was not a good idea for the owners. And then I would work the
artist door?
The artist door on Saturdays because Joe Cool
didn't work on Saturdays.
Right. So that was my job. The artist door on Saturdays, which is a very lucrative job for me. Because the Saturday gigs, the tips back then were, and so like them from the ladies and it was great. And then I worked security sometimes. Like I remember Bad Brains like tossing people off the stage and like I remember like busting people up there. You know, I was security.
Yeah.
They let me work the door once.
Just once?
It was a Carl Denson show.
Yeah.
During Jazz Fest, and let's just say the club was over capacity by like 400 people because I was working the door.
Man,
because I was taking all kind of deals at the door. I'm not gonna talk about
I'll tell you what, like.
But I'm just saying, but like I did. It was a short time. It was only like maybe 4 or 5 or 6 months until because the band got back together and we.
All right, so it was short lived then.
But all bull aside, Shipley and Fortenberry and Slate, of course, they hooked me up with the job.
Man, you make me feel like a real square. I started working here not long after you had come and gone. Right. I didn't start till 2003. And anyone who knows me,
by then I was already an established star. I need to work here.
Yeah, an established star, absolutely. You were already well on your way.
Right. It was a different time.
Exactly. It was a different city. You could manage to overcrowd the hell out of a bar and no one was going to say anything.
It was a different city.
You call the police for that? You're going to call the fire marshal because it's too crowded at Tipitina's?
And also, like, as a musician, but during the time I worked here, I made a lot of connections too, just as and then
just
a year or two later, the people will find out I was a musician. They're like, "You play drums too? I thought you were just a cool dude that sold his weed." I'm like, well, I'm that dude too. But I'm like, yeah, I can play your gig too if that's what you want.
Well, you said before we started recording, I think, that you were trying to think back to your first gig playing on the stage here. Did you think about what it was? Do you know what it might have been, maybe? It was before you were with Kermit.
It would be easy for me to say Kermit, but I just know that's not true. It was either with some UNO thing, or it might have just been straight up with Marcellus, or I think maybe Walter Payton. Walter Payton. I think it was Walter Payton.
All right.
Because he was a friend. Because Walter took me to Germany when I was extremely young. Like I went to France with Kermit when I was still a teenager, but I went to Germany with Walter before I went to France with Kermit.
Okay.
But I don't.
You don't have to remember. That's okay.
Right, but
it's
also
always fun for people.
But I also don't know if Walter even played here. But I put it to you this way: I never played here. Just 90s. I definitely played here with Kermit. I definitely played here with Cool Bone. I definitely played here with all that. I definitely played with Kronk and Ellis.
Yeah.
So which one was first? It was either Ellis or Walter Payton.
Should have been keeping track all these years, like Ellis said, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Should have been keeping track all these years. Well, you've been super generous for giving us so much of your time, and we'll start ramping it down a little bit. And there's a couple of things that I feel like we could take on a spiral that could go for at least a half hour a piece or whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go through all that.
No, for sure. There is something that we've been doing for most of these, kind of out of coincidence, only because it came up naturally when I was talking with Stanton when we had him on stage here. Do you have a favorite spot? Do you have a favorite po' boy? But more specifically, if you were going to create the smoker po' boy, what is it? Two things. Where's your go-to spot? Is there a neighborhood place?
My go-to spot is Parkway.
Okay.
For po' boys.
Okay.
Parkway for sure.
All right.
Love Domalisi's. Love. I mean, I used to go to Jeans a lot.
The Jeans has come up a couple times, sadly.
Yeah,
R.I.P. Yeah. There's 100 good places to get a po' boy.
Parkway. My ultimate po' boy.
Yeah, the smoke. What is the smoker?
Smoke. Well, okay. It's not that
the
hard.
The one that you are going to create name and it'll be on a menu forever.
Right. It's smoked turkey.
Smoked turkey. All
and
right.
Smoked Gouda.
Okay.
And then fried oysters.
All right.
And bacon.
That's pretty good, man. Dressed at all?
With the Russian sauce.
Russian sauce. We're getting a clap from the great Pete Jones back there.
Lettuce
and Russian dressing. Yeah. That's it.
No pickles. Tomatoes, optional. But
that's
lettuce.
A really good one. I never thought about smoked turkey and smoked Gouda. Turkey is never a go-to meat for me. For some reason.
It also has oysters on it.
I mean the oysters and bacon with the turkey and Gouda.
Because it's the smoke. It's all smoke.
That's a good point. I don't know if I'd go for the Russian dressing. I feel like
it's like a piece. Well, it's like a peacemaker.
Yeah.
But with Gouda and add turkey.
And turkey, yeah. That's pretty good.
Turkey instead of shrimp. The peacemaker is shrimp and oyster with cheddar and bacon.
With cheddar
and Russian
bacon.
dressing.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I don't know.
So it's like
I would go for the debris though. Just like a peacemaker
the peacemaker was my back then.
Yeah.
So the smoker would be like a adaptation of the peacemaker. So I would add smoked Gouda and smoked turkey.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
After we get, I don't know how many of these interviews in the can, we're going to have to create like a menu of everyone's signature po' boys and figure out something. Maybe we'll do some kind of food festival fundraiser for maybe the LLS for the next whatever, something else. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. That was pretty swell of you for coming up. But no one gets to leave empty-handed. We have a prize for everyone. We have for you a certificate suitable for framing for coming on this program. Feel free to read that.
All right,
the slow handover for the. Yeah, this is the all right broadcast. Here, you can have a folder. I don't want you to lose it. I want you to make sure it stays safe. You don't have to frame it, but it is suitable for framing, so I would recommend that you do it.
It's extremely frameable, by the way.
Yeah, no, that is a certificate suitable for framing. Did you read it? You saw what it said?
Officially awesome for being interviewed.
For
absolutely no monetary compensation.
Exactly, for no monetary compensation. And congratulations, and you're welcome.
Very New Orleans.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Smoker himself.
At least I knew before I got here I wasn't getting paid.
No, I think I make it clear to everyone.
No, I'm just saying.
Did I tell you? I don't know. I haven't really told anyone.
No, I'm just saying.
Everyone's so nice that they just have been coming just because I asked. They're like, yeah, sure, man, I can make time for you.
Saying, look where you work, asshole. It's your.
Well, that's the other thing.
You're asking New Orleans musicians like, do you want to come to Tipitinas and stay on stage and talk about Tipitinas? You're like.
Well,
why the would I not want to do that?
More specifically, do you want to talk about you? So it's like, yeah, you're telling me there's musicians that don't want to talk about themselves? Come on, that's unlikely.
They don't exist.
Right? Uh-oh. Be careful. Don't burn the place down. We have to reopen one day, hopefully.
Musicians that don't like to talk about themselves are called performance artists. Different thing.
I'll let that stand. All right, Tanner, bring it on the one shot to me, I guess. Thank you again, Derrick Freeman, for coming and being a part of this. Check out Soul Brass Band at
soulbrassband.com.
Okay, that's a simple website, soulbrassband.com. Buy their music, buy that new album, spend money, and I'm sure there's links for Venmo or PayPal or anything else.
Venmo at Soul Brass Band and PayPal.me at Soul Brass Band.
That's cool. All the links to all their socials and everything else are on soulbrassband.com as well.
Right, exactly.
So we'll go ahead and put that on the screen or whatever for people to see. Thank you again to the great Pete Jones for doing lights and sound over there.
Pete, appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Tanner upstairs in the closet working the cameras. Thanks to Nick Logan as well for being the executive producer, co-creator, and all the other titles that he wants to give himself. Thank you to Tipitinas. Go ahead and show the Tipitinas logo over my shoulder right now. Tipitinas.com. And I hope you're watching this via tipitinas.tv. Show that logo right now. And that's going to be added later. And thank you to Nugs.net for the usage of the equipment. Go ahead and show the Nugs.net logo right now. Okay. Nick's getting pretty cocky about editing. So he's like, yeah, man, I can do all this crazy stuff. I'll put it on there. So go ahead and mess with his head.
I believe him, yo.
I believe in him, too. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And, yeah, that's the long and the short of it. I feel like I had a closing. I don't remember what it was going to be.
Oh, no, it was fun, though.
Was it fun?
Yeah, I had a good time.
All right. Can you let me talk for an hour and 55 minutes?
I can because during COVID, I've done so many of those. I'm like,